Come on, Twitch, take 4.
4 times a charm.
Yes, 4 times the charm. We're online.
Well, this
Woo!
is a way to keep the enthusiasm real. Because at first we're fearing for 15 times. And then
Well,
finally it works, we get through.
yeah, 4 times. So well, I think we're doing better.
We're doing better.
Well, hello everyone. I think Kira, Feroz, and Girius are in already.
Yes, welcome.
And I think the rest will be there in a bit. Even was bot. Doctor and Bramstein are here.
Good evening.
Oh, I think we should give
Nice
him a
to
couple
see
of
you're
minutes. And
Hello,
Phoenicia.
Phoenicia.
Hi, Phoenicia. Okay, while we wait for a couple of minutes, I'm going to do the usual spiel. Today it's story time, Cats and Coffee. Just So Stories by Rudyard Kipling, read by our lovely alien, Rincy. As per the previous stream, I will be taking care of the chat while she does her magic. Or free lollies. Okay. Anyway, she will be doing her magic, and I will be trying to shut up while she does what she does. And after each story, I will give her a rundown of what you all said in order for her to make things a bit quicker, so she doesn't have to read through the entire chat. In contrary to the previous story stream, I will be doing this so you guys can hear me, so you can check if I do things wrong. I almost said bad words. Yeah, so this is going to be the way. We do have a little bit of a sound issue, so no, that's not what we're here for, Phoenicia. We do have a bit of a sound issue today, so our wonderful microphone on Renincy's end isn't actually doing what it needs to do, so please bear in mind that some things are a bit different than usual. We might want to try violence next time in order to get the microphone to work, but that's me. So I think I managed to fill about a minute or so of text. I think that at 21:05 we're going to start the stream. Are there any questions for our wonderful Cats and Coffee stream? Kitty's been playing with it.
There's too many kitties in this home. They're wrecking everything. Maybe the stream as well.
Well, I did see.
Cats love destruction.
I did see one of them actually gnawing on cables a bit back when I was at your place.
Yeah, well, that shouldn't be it, but if it is, then I'll have to replace that one.
I think we need to check all the cables.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be weird. Oh, look, Wise One is there as well. Just in time for story time. Right. Okay, then at this particular point I shall shut up and let Renincy do her magic. Ready, everyone? And
Gary says, when the gentle tap of love doesn't work, all that remains is blind, ugly violence. Yeah, but microphones can be expensive, so...
I want to put that on a shirt, at least for me.
Yeah, that sounds better on a shirt than it does on your microphone.
Yes. Okay, I'm shutting up now. Do your thing.
All right. I haven't read the rest of the stories, so we're going back to the last stream, the second half. I was just free. I was just imagining it on the spot how every voice is going to be sounding. So that's what we're going to do this time as well. And I'm going to be as curious as the rest of you how the story continues. You might hear some cats in the background. They're very talkative today. So, I don't think they're sorry. No apologies, I guess. But if they get really bad, I'll try to control them, which is something that is definitely gonna fail. So let's start with how the first letter was written. Once upon a most early time, there was a Neolithic man. He was not a Ute or an Angle or even a Dravidian, which he might well have been, best beloved. But never mind why. He was a primitive, and he lived cavily in a cave. And he wore very few clothes, and he couldn't read, and he couldn't write, and he didn't want to. And except when he was hungry, he was quite happy. His name was Tegomai Bobsulai, and that means man who does not put his foot forward in a hurry. But we, O best beloved, will call him Tegomai for short. And his wife's name was Teshumai Tewindro, and that means lady who asks a very many questions. But we, O best beloved, will call her Teshumai for short. And his little girl daughter's name was Tafimai Tetalumai, and that means small person without any manners who ought to be spanked. But I'm going to call her Taffy. And she was Tegomai Bobslai's best beloved and her own mummy's best beloved. And she was not spanked half as much as was good for her. So not at all. And they were all three very happy. As soon as Taffy could run about, she went everywhere with her daddy Tegomai. And sometimes they would not come home to the cave till they were hungry. And then Teshumai Tewindro would say, "Where in the world have you two been to get so shockingly dirty? Really, my Tegomai, you are no better than my Taffy. Now attend and listen." One day, Tegomai Bobsulai went down through the beaver swamp to the Wagai River to spear carp fish for dinner. And Taffy went too. Tegomai's spear was made of wood with shark's teeth at the end. And before he had caught any fish at all, he accidentally broke it clean across by jabbing it down too hard on the bottom of the river. They were miles and miles from home. Of course, they had their lunch with them in the little bag, and Tegomai had forgotten to bring extra spears. "Here's a pretty kettle of fish," said Tegomai. It will take me half the day to mend this." "There's your big black spear at home," said Taffy. "Let me run back to the cave and ask Mummy to give it to me." "It's too far for your little fat legs," said Tegomai. "Besides, you might fall into the beaver swamp and be drowned. We must make the best of a bad job." He sat down and took out a little leather mendy bag, full of reindeer sinews and strips of leather and lumps of beeswax and resin, and began to mend the spear. Taffy sat down too, with her toes in the water and her chin in her hand, and thought very hard. Then she said, "I say, Daddy, it's an awful nuisance that you and I don't know how to write, isn't it? And if we did, we could send a message for the new spear." "Taffy," said Tegomai, How often have I told you not to use slang? Awful isn't a pretty word, but it could be a convenience now you mention it, if we could write home. Just then, a stranger man came along the river, but he belonged to a far tribe, the Tawaras, and he did not understand one word of Tegomai's language. He stood on the bank and smiled at Taffy, because he had a little girl daughter of his own at home. Tegomai drew a hank of deer sinews from his mending bag and began to mend his spear. "Come here," said Taffy. "Do you know where my mummy lives?" And the stranger man said, Um, being, as you know, Tawara. "Silly," said Taffy, and she stamped her foot, because she saw a shoal of a very big carp going up the river just when her daddy couldn't use his spear. "Don't bother grown-ups," said Tegomai, so busy with his spear mending that he did not turn around. "I aren't," said Taffy. "I only want him to do what I want him to do, and he won't understand." "Then don't bother me," said Tegomai, and he went on pulling and straining at the deer sinews with his mouth full of loose ends. The stranger man, a genuine Tawara he was, sat down on the grass, and Taffy showed him what her daddy was doing. The stranger man thought, "This is a very wonderful child. She stamps her foot at me, and she makes faces. She must be the daughter of that noble chief, who is so great that he won't take any notice of me." So he smiled more politely than ever. "Now," said Taffy, "I want you to go to my mummy, because your legs are longer than mine, and you won't fall into the beaver swamp, and ask for Daddy's other spear, the one with the black handle that hangs over our fireplace." The stranger man, and he was a Tawara, thought, "This is a very wonderful child. She waves her arms and she shouts at me, but I don't understand a word of what she says. But if I don't do what she wants, I greatly fear that that haughty chief, man who turns his back on callers, will be angry." He got up and twisted a big fat piece of bark off a birch tree and gave it to Taffy. He did this, best beloved, to show that his heart was as white as the birch bark and that he meant no harm. But Taffy didn't quite understand. "Oh," said she, "now I see. You want my mummy's living address. Of course I can't write, but I can draw pictures. If I've anything sharp to scratch it with, please lend me the shark's tooth of your necklace." The stranger man, and he was a Tawara, didn't say anything. So Taffy put up her little hand and pulled at the beautiful bead and seed and shark tooth necklace round his neck. The stranger man, and he was a Tawara, thought, "This is a very, very, very wonderful child. The shark's tooth on my necklace is a magic shark's tooth, and I was always told that if anybody touched it without my leave, they would immediately swell up or burst. But this child doesn't swell up or burst, and that important chief, man who attends strictly to his business, who has not yet taken any notice of me at all, doesn't seem to be afraid that she will swell up or burst. I had better be more polite. So he gave Taffy the shark's tooth, and he lay down flat on her tummy with her and she lay down flat on her tummy with her legs in the air, like some people on the drawing room floor when they want to draw pictures. And she said, "Now I'll draw you some beautiful pictures. You can look over my shoulder, but you mustn't joggle. First, I'll draw Daddy fishing. It isn't very like him, but Mummy will know because I've drawn his spear all broken. Well, now I'll draw the other spear that he wants, the black-handed spear. It looks as if he was sticking in Daddy's back, but that's because the shark tooth slipped and this piece of bark isn't big enough. That's the spear I want you to fetch. So I'll draw a picture of myself, explaining to you. My hair doesn't stand up like I've drawn, but it's easier to draw that way. Now I'll draw you. I think you're very nice, really, but I can't make you pretty in the picture, so you mustn't be offended. Are you offended? The stranger man, and he was a Tawara, smiled. He thought, there must be a big battle going to be fought somewhere, and this extraordinary child who takes my magic shark's tooth, but who does not swell up or burst, is telling me to call all the great chief's tribe to help him. He is a great chief, or he would have noticed me. Look, said Taffy, drawing very hard and rather scratchily. Now I've drawn you, and I've put the spear that Daddy wants into your hand, just to remind you that you're to bring it. Now I'll show you how to find my mummy's living address. You go along till you come to two trees. Those are trees. And then you go over to a hill, and that's a hill. And then you come into a beaver swamp all full of beavers. I haven't put in all the beavers because I can't draw beavers. But I've drawn their heads, and that's all you'll see of them when you cross the swamp. Mind that you don't fall in. Then our cave is just beyond the beaver swamp. It isn't as high as the hills, really, but I can't draw things very small. That's my that's my mummy outside. She is beautiful. She is the most beautifulest mummy there ever was. But she won't be offended when she sees I've drawn her so plain. She'll be pleased of me because I can draw. Now, in case you forget, I've drawn the spear that Daddy wants outside our cave. It's inside, really, but you show the picture to my mummy and she'll give it to you. I've made her holding up her hands because I know she'll be so pleased to see you. Isn't it a beautiful picture? And do you quite understand, or shall I explain it again? The stranger man, and he was a Tawara, looked at the picture and nodded very hard. He said to himself, if I do not fetch this great chief's tribe to help him, he will be slain by his enemies who are coming up on all sides with spears. Now I see why the great chief pretended not to notice me. He feared that his enemies were hiding in the bushes and would see him. Therefore, he turned to me his back and let me, the wise and wonderful child, draw a terrible picture showing me his difficulties. I will away and get help for him from his tribe. He did not even ask Taffy the road. but raced off into the bushes like the wind, with the birch bark in his hand, and Taffy sat down, most pleased. Now this is the picture that Taffy had drawn for him. "What have you been doing, Taffy?" said Tegemai. He had mended his spear and was carefully waving it to and fro. "It's a little arrangement of my own, Daddy dear," said Taffy. "If you won't ask me questions, you'll know all about it in a little time, and you'll be surprised." "You don't know how surprised you'll be, Daddy. Promise you'll be surprised." "Very well," said Tegemai, and he went on fishing. The stranger man, did you know he was a Tawara? Hurried away with the picture and ran for some miles, till by accident he found Teshumai Tewindro at the door of her cave, talking to some other Neolithic ladies who had come in to the primitive lunch. Taffy was very like Teshumai, especially about the upper part of the face and the eyes, so the stranger man, always a pure Tawara, smiled politely and handed Teshumai the birch bark. He had run hard, so that he panted, and his legs were scratched with bramble, but he still tried to be polite. As soon as Teshumai saw the picture, she screamed like anything and flew at the stranger man. The other Neolithic ladies at once knocked him down and sat on him in a long line of 6, while Teshumai pulled his hair. "It's as plain as the nose on this stranger's man's face." "Oh, it's as plain as the nose on this stranger's man's face," she said. "He has stuck my Tegemai all full of spears, and frightened poor Taffy so that her hair stands all on end. And not content with that, he brings me a horrid picture of how it was done. Look!" She showed the picture to all the Neolithic ladies sitting patiently on the stranger man. "Here is my Tegemai with his arm broken. Here is a spear sticking into his back. There is a man with a spear ready to throw. Here is another man throwing a spear from a cave. And here are a whole pack of people." They were Taffy's beavers. They were Taffy's beavers, really, but they did look rather like people. Coming up behind Tegemai. "Isn't it shocking?" "Most shocking," said the Neolithic ladies, and they filled the stranger man's hair with mud, at which he was surprised, and they beat upon the reverberating tribal drums and called together all the chiefs of the tribe of Tegemai, with their headmans and dolmans and neguses, wounds and akoons of the organization, in addition to the warlocks, Angiocogs, juju men, bonzes, and the rest, who decided that before they chopped the stranger man's head off, he should instantly lead them down the river and show them where he had hidden poor Taffy. By this time, the stranger man, in spite of being a Tawara, was really annoyed. They had filled his hair quite solid with mud. They had rolled him up and down on knobbly pebbles. They had sat upon him in a long line of 6. They had thumped him and bumped him till he could hardly breathe. And though he did not understand their language, he was almost sure that the names the Neolithic ladies called him were not ladylike. However, he said nothing till all the tribe of Tegemai were assembled, and then he led them back to the bank of the Wagai River. And there they found Taffy making daisy chains, and Tegemai carefully spearing small carp with his mended spear. "Well, you have been quick," said Taffy. "But why did you bring so many people?" "Daddy dear, this is my surprise." "Are you surprised, Daddy?" "Very," said Tegemai. but it has ruined all my fishing for the day. Why, the whole dear, kind, nice, clean, quiet tribe is here, Taffy." And so they were. First of all walked Teshumai Tewindro and her Neolithic ladies, tightly holding on to the stranger man, whose hair was full of mud, although he was a Tawara. Behind them came the head chief, the vice chief, the deputy, and the assistant chiefs, all armed to the upper teeth, the hetmans and the dead of hundreds, platovs with their platoons, and dolmens with their detachments, wounds, neguses, and the echoons ranking in the rear, still armed to the teeth. Behind them was the tribe in hierarchical order, from owners of 4 caves, one for each season, a private reindeer run, and 2 salmon leaps, to feudal and protagonist villains, semi-entitled to have a bearskin of winter nights, 7 yards from the fire, and adscript serfs, holding the reversion of a scraped marrow bone on their Harriet. Aren't those beautiful words, best beloved? Very difficult. They were all here, prancing and shouting, and they frightened every fish for 20 miles. And Tegamai thanked them in fluid Neolithic oration. Then Teshumai Tewindro ran down and kissed and hugged Taffy very much indeed. But the head chief of the tribe of Tegamai took Tegamai by the top knot feathers and shook him severely. "Explain! Explain! Explain!" cried all the tribe of Tegamai. "Goodness sakes alive!" said Tegamai. "Let go of my top knot. Can't a man break his carp spear without the whole countryside descending on him? You're a very interfering people." "I don't believe you've brought my daddy's black-handed spear after all," said Taffy. "And what are you doing to my nice stranger man?" They were thumping him by 2s and 3s and 10s till his eyes turned round and round. He could only gasp and point at Taffy. "Where are the bad people who speared you, my darling?" said Teshumai to Windrow. There weren't any, said Tegamai. "My only visitor this morning was the poor fellow that you are trying to choke. Aren't you well? Or are you ill, O tribe of Tegamai?" "He came with a horrible picture," said the head chief. "A picture that showed you were full of spears." Uh, Perhaps I'd better explain that I gave him that picture," said Taffy, but she did not feel quite comfy. "You," said the tribe of Tegamai altogether. "Small person with no manners who ought to be spanked. You!" "Taffy, dear, I'm afraid that we're in a little trouble," said her daddy, and put his arm around her. So she didn't care. "Explain, explain, explain," said the chief of the tribe of Tegamai, and he hopped on one foot. "I wanted the stranger man to fetch Daddy's spear, so I've drawed it," said Taffy. "There wasn't lots of spears. There was only one spear. I drawed it 3 times to make sure. I couldn't help it look as if it stuck into Daddy's head. There wasn't room on the birch bark, and those things that Mummy called bad people are my beavers. I drawed them to show him the way through the swamp. And I draw Mummy at the mouth of the cave looking pleased, because he is a nice stranger man, and I think you are just the stupidest people in the world," said Taffy. "He is a very nice man. Why have you filled his hair with mud? Wash him." Nobody said anything at all for a long time, till the head chief laughed. Then the stranger man, who was at least a Tawara, laughed. Then Tegemai laughed till he fell down flat on the bank. Then all the tribe laughed more and worse and louder. The only people who did not laugh were Teshumai to Windrow and all the Neolithic ladies. They were very polite to all their husbands and said idiot ever so often. Then the head chief of the tribe of Tegamai cried and said and sang, "Oh, small person without any manners who ought to be spanked, you've hit upon a great invention." "I didn't intend to. I only wanted Daddy's black-handed spear," said Taffy. "Never mind. It is a great invention, and some day men will call it writing. At present it is only pictures, and as we have seen today, pictures are not always properly understood. But a time will come, O babe of Tegomai, when we shall make letters, all 26 of them, and when we shall be able to read as well as to write, and then we shall always say exactly what we mean, without any mistakes. Let the Neolithic ladies wash the mud out of the stranger's hair." "I shall be glad of that," said Taffy, "because, after all, you've brought every single other spear in the tribe of Tegamai, but you've forgotten my daddy's black-handed spear." Then the head chief cried and said and sang, "Taffy dear, next time you write a picture letter, you'd better send a man who can talk our language with it, to explain what it means. I don't mind it myself because I am a head chief, but it is very bad for the rest of the tribe of Tegamai, and as you can see, it surprises the stranger." Then they adopted the stranger man, a genuine Tawara of Tawar, into the tribe of Tegamai, because he was a gentleman and did not make a fuss about the mud that the Neolithic ladies had put into his hair. But from that day to this, and I suppose it is all Taffy's fault, very few little girls have ever liked learning to read or write. Most of them prefer to draw pictures and play about with their daddies, just like Taffy. And here's the poem. There runs a road by Marrow Down, a grassy track today it is, an hour out of Guildford town, above the river way it is. Here, when they heard the horse bells ring, the ancient Britons dressed and rode to watch the dark Phoenicians bring their goods along the western road. And here or hereabouts they met to hold their racial talks and such, to barter beads for Whitby jet, and tin for gay shell torques and such. But long and long before that time, when bison used to roam on it, did Taffy and her daddy climb, sat down and had their home on it. Then beavers built in Broadstone Brook, and made a swamp where Bramley stands, and bears from Sheer would come and look for Taffamai where Shamley stands. The way that Taffy called Wagai was more than 6 times bigger then, and all the tribe of Tegamai, they cut a noble figure then. And that's this story.
And the moral of this story is always go for a very good artist capable of conveying your pictures. Your intentions to pictures and such.
Or pick a writer.
Or pick a good writer.
Yeah, writing and drawing and communication is important.
Yep,
Maybe
communication
that's
is
it.
key.
Whatever form of communication you pick, communication is key.
Well, one part of the communication, which is actually fun, was Bromsteinfos actually saying, "Why would you give your kid such a name?" Uh,
Taffy.
no, I think it was about the ones before that.
Yeah,
um,
yeah. Who ought to be spanked? Yeah, no.
yes. In the meantime, Furry came online as well. People for
Welcome.
Feroz was talking about else maybe might be lurking with the secret identity. And Girius was thinking about the explain part where he hears it in a Dalek voice. Explain, explain, explain.
In a Dalek voice?
Yeah, from Doctor Who, the
Uh,
bot-like things.
hmm.
I'm sure the chat will be able to.
Understand, yeah. I
Oh,
don't watch Doctor Who myself.
so yeah, that was the first one. And it
Mm-hmm.
seems like you're drinking something in order to keep your voice well lubricated.
Yeah, let's see. Energizing.
Blood orange!
Yeah. And it's important to drink a lot when it's been such a warm day.
Yes, I'm currently working my way through a big bottle of Fentimans ginger beer.
Oh, also very refreshing. Oops. I am drawing the cap. Dropping the cap. Whoop. Can't have that.
Oh, Furry says they normally yell exterminate. Most of the times they do it 3 times. Oh, that explains that. And Phoenicia is working on a can of Monster Mule. Good choice, Phoenicia.
Also very energizing.
Uh, oh, interesting. That the next one is about the alphabet.
Yeah,
So it's actually a continuation of the story.
it is. It has the same characters. And
Furry.
it's about how the alphabet was made.
Well, apparently after that little bit.
Yeah, they figured out that it needed to have 26 letters, I guess.
Yeah.
So maybe Taffy, her adventures lead somehow to all 26 of the letters.
Well, oh,
Shall
let's.
shall I go ahead?
I think so. And Furry is enjoying his crystal clear raspberry blueberry.
Cheers to you too.
Cheers to everyone. Anyway, I think we can go for your second story then for tonight. I mean, you did about 30 minutes for. Yeah, you did
Yeah.
the first story in about 30 minutes, so.
All right. Let's see how long for the next one.
See if you can break the record. Wait. Good luck.
Done.
I'm so gonna clip that. Have fun.
How the alphabet was made. The week after Taffy Metalomai, we will still call her Taffy, best beloved, made that little mistake about her daddy's spear and the stranger man and the picture letter and all. She went carp fishing again with her daddy. Her mommy wanted her to stay at home and help hang up the hides to dry on the big drying poles outside their Neolithic cave. But Taffy slipped away down to her daddy quite early, and they fished. Presently, she began to giggle, and her daddy said, "Don't be silly, child." "But wasn't it inciting?" said Taffy. "Don't you remember how the head chief pulled out his cheeks and how funny this nice stranger man looked with the mud in his hair?" "Well, I do," said Tegomai. "I had to pay 2 deerskins, soft ones, with fringes, to the stranger man for the things we did to him." "Didn't do anything," said Taffy. "It was Mummy and the other Neolithic ladies, and the mud." We won't talk about that, said her daddy. Let's have lunch. Taffy took a marrowbone and sat mousy quiet for 10 whole minutes, while her daddy scratched on pieces of birch bark with a shark's tooth. Then she said, Daddy, I've thinked of a secret surprise. You make a noise, any sort of noise. Said Tegamai. Will that do to begin with? Yes, said Taffy. You look just like a carpfish with its mouth open. Say it again, please. Uh, 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 said her daddy. Don't be rude, my daughter. I'm not meaning rude, really and truly, said Taffy. It's part of my secret surprise think. Do say ah, Daddy, and keep your mouth open at the end. And lend me that tooth. I'm going to draw a carpfish's mouth wide open. What for? Said Daddy. Don't you see? Said Taffy, scratching away on the bark. That will be our little secret surprise. When I draw a carpfish with his mouth open in the smoke at the back of our cave, if Mummy doesn't mind, it will remind you of that ah noise. Then we can play that it was me jumped out of the dark and surprised you with that noise, same as I did in the beaver swamp last winter. Really, said her daddy, in the voice that grown-ups use when they are truly attending. Go on, Taffy. Oh, bother, she said. I can't draw all of a carpfish, but I can draw something that means a carpfish's mouth. Don't you know how they stand on their heads rooting in the mud? Well, here's a pretend carpfish. We can play that the rest of him is drawn. Here's just his mouth, and that means ah. And then she drew this. The ah. That's not bad, said Tegamai, and scratched on his own piece of bark for himself. But you've forgotten the feeler that hangs across his mouth. But I can't draw, Daddy. You needn't draw anything of him except just the opening of his mouth and the feeler across. Then we'll know he's a carpfish, because he perches and trouts haven't got feelers. Look here, Taffy. And he drew this. Imagine something. Now I'll copy it, said Taffy. Will you understand this when you see it? Perfectly, said her daddy. And she drew this. Whatever it is. And I'll be quite as surprised when I see it anywhere, as if you had jumped out from behind a tree and said, ah! Now, make another noise, said Taffy, very proud. Yeah, said her daddy, very loud. Said Taffy. That's a mixy noise. The end part is ah, carpfish mouth? But what can we do about the front part? Year, year, ye, and ah, yeah. It is very like the carpfish's mouth noise. Let's draw another bit of the carpfish and join them, said her daddy. He was quite excited too. No, if they're joined, I'll forget. Draw it separate. Draw his tail. If he's standing on his head, the tail will come first. Besides, I think I can draw tails easiest, said Taffy. A good notion, said Tegemai. Here's a carpfish tail for the year noise. And he drew this. Something. I'll try now, said Taffy. Remember, I can't draw like you, Daddy. Will it do if I just draw the split part of the tail and the sticky down line for where it joins? And she drew this. It's such a shame that I don't have those pictures. Her daddy nodded, and his eyes were shiny bright with excitement. That's beautiful, she said. Now make another noise, Daddy. Oh, said her daddy, very loud. That's quite easy, said Taffy. You make your mouth all round like an egg or a stone. So an egg or a stone will do for that. You can't always find eggs or stones. We'll have to scratch around something like one. And he drew this. My gracious, said Taffy. What a lot of noise pictures we've made. Carp mouth, carp tail, and egg. Now make another noise, Daddy. Shh, said her daddy, and frowned to himself. But Taffy was too excited to notice. That's quite easy, she said, scratching on the bark. What? Said her daddy. I meant I was thinking and didn't want to be disturbed. It's a noise just the same. It's the noise a snake makes, Daddy, when it is thinking and doesn't want to be disturbed. Let's make the shh noise a snake. Will this do? And she drew this. There, she said. That's another surprise secret. When you draw a hissy snake by the door of your little back cave where you meant the spears, I'll know you're thinking hard, and I'll come in most mousy quiet. And if you draw it on a tree by the river when you're fishing, I know you want me to walk most mousy quiet, so as not to shake the banks. Perfectly true, said Tegemai. And there's more in this game than you think. Taffy, dear, I have a notion that your daddy's daughter has hit upon the finest thing that there ever was since the tribe of Tegemai took to using shark's teeth instead of flints for their spearheads. I believe we've found out the big secret of the world. Why? Said Taffy. Her eyes shone too with excitement. I'll show, said her daddy. What's water in the Tegumai language? Yeah, of course. And it means river too, like Wagaya, the Wagai River. What is bad water that gives you fever if you drink it? Black water, swamp water? Yo, of course. Now look, said her daddy. suppose you saw this scratched by the side of a pool in the beaver swamp. And he drew this. Carp tail and round egg. Two noises mixed. Yo, bad water, said Taffy. Of course I wouldn't drink that water because I'd know you said it was bad. But I needn't be near the water at all. I might be miles away, hunting, and still it would be just the same as if you stood there and said, "Go away, Taffy, or you will get fever." All that in a carpfish tail and a round egg. Oh, Daddy, we mustn't tell Mommy. We must tell Mommy quick. And Taffy danced all round him. Not yet, said Tegamai. Not till we've gone a little further. Let's see. Yo is bad water. But so is food cooked on the fire, isn't it? And he drew this. Yes, snake and egg, said Taffy. So that means dinner's ready. If you saw that scratched on a tree, you'd know it was time to come to the cave. And so'd I. My Winky, said Tegamai. That's true too. But wait a minute. I see a difficulty. So means come and have dinner. But show means the drying poles where we hang our hides. Horrid old drying poles, said Taffy. I hate helping to hang heavy, hot, hairy hides on them. If you drew the snake and egg, and I thought it meant dinner, and I came in from the wood and I found that it meant I was to help Mummy hang the two hides on the drying poles, what would I do? You'd be cross. So'd Mummy. We must make a new picture for show. We mustn't draw a spotty snake that hisses. Shh, shh. And we'll play that the plain snake only hisses. I couldn't be sure how to put in the spots, said Taffy. And perhaps if you were in a hurry, you might leave them out. And I think it was so when it was show, and then Mummy would catch me just the same. No, I think we better draw a picture of the horrid high drying poles in their very selves and make quite sure. I'll put them in just to make the hissy snake. Look, and she drew this. Something. Perhaps that's safest. It's very like our drying poles anyhow, said her daddy, laughing. Now I'll make a new noise with a snake and a drying pole sound in it. I'll say, she. That's Tegamai for spear, Taffy. And he laughed. Don't make fun of me, said Taffy, as she thought of her picture letter and the mud in the stranger man's hair. You draw it, Daddy. We won't have beavers or hills this time, eh? Said her daddy. We'll just draw a straight line for my spear. And he drew this. Even Mummy couldn't mistake that for me being killed. Please don't, Daddy. It makes me uncomfy. Do some more noises. We're getting on beautifully. Said Tegamai, looking up. We'll say shoo. That means sky. Taffy drew the snake and the drying pole. Then she stopped. We must make a new picture for that end sound, mustn't we? Shoo, shoo, oo, 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 said her daddy. Why? It's just like the round egg sound, made thin. Then suppose we draw a thin round egg and pretend it's a frog that hasn't eaten anything for years. No, said her daddy. If we drew that in a hurry, we might mistake it for the round egg itself. Shoo, shoo, shoo. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll open a little hole at the end of the round egg to show how the O noise runs out all thin. Ooh, like this. And he drew this. Oh, that's lovely. Much better than a thin frog. Go on, said Taffy, using her shark's tooth. Her daddy went on drawing, and his hand shook with excitement. He went on till he had drawn this. Don't look up, Taffy, he said. Try if you can make out what that means in the Tegamai language. If you can, we've found the secret. Snake, pole, broken egg, carp tail, and carp mouth, said Taffy. Shoo-ya! Sky water. Rain. Just then a drop fell on her hand, for the day had clouded over. Why, Daddy, it's raining. Was that what you meant to tell me? Of course, said her daddy. And I told you it without saying a word, didn't I? Well, I think I would have known it in a minute, but that raindrop made me quite sure. I'll always remember now. Shuya means rain, or it's going to rain. Why, Daddy? She got up and danced round him. Suppose you sent it out before I was awake, and drawed Shuya in the smoke on the wall. I'd know it was going to rain, and I'd take my beaver skin hood. Wouldn't Mummy be surprised? Tegamai got up and danced. Daddies didn't mind doing those things in those days. More than that, he said. Suppose I wanted to tell you it was going to rain much, and you mustn't come down the river. What would we draw? Say the words and Tegamai first. Shuyalas Yamaru. Sky water ending. River come too. What a lot of new sounds. I don't see how we can draw them. But I do, said Tegamai. Just attend a minute. Taffy, and we don't do any more today. We've got Shuya all right, haven't we? But this is a teaser. La la la. And he waved his shark tooth. There's the hissy snake at the end, and the carp mouth before the snake. As, we only want la la, said Taffy. I know it, but we have to make la la, and we're the first people in all the world who've ever tried to do it. Taffy Mai. Well, said Taffy, yawning, for she was rather tired. Las means breaking or finishing, as well as ending, doesn't it? So it does, said Tegamai. To las means that there's no water in the tank for Mummy to cook with. Just when I'm going hunting too. And Sheilas means that your spear is broken. If I'd only thought of that instead of drawing silly beaver pictures for the stranger. La, 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 said Tegamai, waving his stick and frowning. Oh, bother! I could have drawn she quite easily, Taffy went on. Then I'd have drawn your spear all broken, this way. And she drew. 14. The very thing, said Tegamai. That's La all over. It isn't like any of the other marks either. And he drew this. Now for ya. Oh, we've done that before. Now for Maru. Mum, mum, mum. Mum shuts one mouth up, doesn't it? We'll draw a shut mouth like this. And he drew. Then the carp mouth open. That makes ma, ma, ma. But what about this rrr thing, Taffy? It sounds all round and edgy, like your shark tooth saw when you're cutting out a plank for the canoe, said Taffy. You mean all sharp at the edges, like this, said Tegamai, and he drew 17. Exactly, said Taffy. But we don't want all those teeth. Only put 2. I'll only put in 1, said Tegamai. If this game of ours is going to be what I think it will, the easier we make our sound pictures, the better for everybody. And he drew 18. Now we've got it, said Tegamai, standing up on one leg. I'll draw 'em all in a string like fish. Hadn't we better put a little bit of stick or something between each word, so they won't rub up against each other and jostle? Same as if they were carps. Oh, I'll leave a space for that, said her daddy. And very excitedly, he drew them all without stopping, on a big new bit of birch bark. Shu ya las ya maru, said Taffy, reading it out sound by sound. That's enough for today, said Tegamai. Besides, you're getting tired, Taffy. Never mind, dear. We'll finish it all tomorrow, and then we'll be remembered for years and years after the biggest trees you can see are all chopped up for firewood. So they went home, and all that evening Tegamai sat on one side of the fire and Taffy on the other, drawing yas and yos and shoes and she's in the smoke on the wall and giggling together till her mummy said, Really, Tegamai, you're worse than my Taffy. Please don't mind, said Taffy. It's only your secret surprise, Mummy dear. And we'll tell you all about it the very minute it's done. But please don't ask me what it is now, or else I'll have to tell. So her mummy most carefully didn't. And bright and early next morning, Tegamai went down to the river to think about new sound pictures. And when Taffy got up, she saw Yalas. Water is ending or running out, chalked on the side of a big stone water tank outside the cave. Said Taffy. These picture sounds are rather a bother. That is just as good as come here himself and told me to get more water for Mummy to cook with. She went to the spring at the back of the house and filled the tank from a bark bucket. And then she ran down to the river and pulled her daddy's left ear, the one that belonged to her to pull when she was good. Now come along and we'll draw all the leftover sound pictures, said her daddy. And they had a most exciting day of it, and a beautiful lunch in the middle, and 2 games of rumps. And when they came to tea, Taffy said that as her name, and her daddy's, and her mummy's, all began with that sound, they should draw a sort of family group of themselves holding hands. That was all very well to draw once or twice, but when it came to drawing it 6 or 7 times, Taffy and Tegamai drew it scratchier and scratchier, till at last there was the T sound was only a thin long Tegamai with his arms out to hold Taffy and Teshumai. You can see from these 3 pictures partly how it happened. Many of the other pictures were much too beautiful to begin with, especially before lunch, but as they were drawn over and over again on birchbark, they became plainer and easier, till at last even Tegamai said he could find no fault with them. They turned the hissy snake the other way around sound for the Z sound, to show that it was hissing backwards in a soft and gentle way. And they just made a twiddle for E, because it came into picture so often. Um, and they drew pictures of the sacred beaver of the Tegamais for the B sound. And because it was a nasty, nosy noise, they just drew noses for the N sound, till they were tired. And they drew pictures of the big lake pike's mouth for the greedy Ga sound. And they drew the pike's mouth again with a spear behind it for the scratchy, hurdy Ka sound. And they drew pictures of a little bit of the winding Wagai River for the nice windy Wah sound. And so on and so forth, and so following till they had done and drawn all the sound pictures that they wanted. And there was the alphabet, all complete. And after thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and after hieroglyphics and demotics and nilotics and cryptics and cufics and runics and dorics and ionics and all sort of other rics and tricks, because the wounds and the neguses and the agoons and the repositories of tradition would never leave a good thing alone when they saw it. The fine, old, easy, understandable alphabet. A, B, T, D, E, and the rest of them got back into its proper shape again for all best beloveds to learn when they are old enough. But I remember Tegamai Bobsulai and Tafimai Metalumai and Tashumai Tawindro, her dear mummy, and all the days gone by, and it was so, just so, a little time ago, on the banks of the big Wagai. And the poem. Of all the tribe of Tegamai, who cut that figure, none remain. On marrow dawn the cuckoo's cry, the silence and the sun remain. But as the faithful years return, and hearts unwounded sing again, comes Taffy dancing through the fern, to lead the Surrey spring again. Her brows are bound with bracken fronds, and golden elf locks fly above. Her eyes are bright as diamonds, and bluer than skies above. In moccasins and deerskin cloak, unfearing, free and fair she flits, and lights her little damp wood smoke, to show her daddy where she flits. For faro or fair behind, so far she cannot call to him, comes Tegamai alone to find the daughter that was all to him. And that one is finished as well. I'm sorry I didn't have any pictures. I didn't have the sound pictures myself. I hope everybody saw something in their minds. Yeah, I was trying to imagine what the things would be, but sometimes I just couldn't do it. Then it's like, this is weird. But some of them like, oh, that's quite brilliant.
Yeah, I kind of muted myself in OBS.
Oh,
No, I said either I tried to draw some of them myself while listening to the description, so that was fun. And yeah, I said even that the people in the chat must be doing the same. Either that or they're too enchanted by your voice and it's just like, ah, story time, yay. And she's speechless.
Yeah, well, it became harder and harder to read because my screen is preparing for me to sleep, so it turns darker and darker. So I was getting closer to the screen, like trying to read this, and it was a bit of a challenge, but
Oh, it
I
gave it,
have it. I have
it
the settings. Um, I
it
have them
gave it a bit
changed.
more intimate nature, so I don't think people
Yeah,
would mind.
it was just me being blind. That's all.
Oh, must be the lack of the cat eye glasses.
Yeah, yeah,
Now,
yeah. I think so.
in the meantime, Furry was talking about him asking for 7 days off and getting 13 by with a bit of
Mm,
luck. The doctor has left for bed already, and we've been talking about getting vaccinated.
mm, important stuff.
hmm And Phoenicia says still a half an hour to go.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe you can show off a kitten for a bit, if you can
Yeah,
find one.
I can try to find one. You'll have to have a bit of patience.
Well, I'm patient. So, people, are you still enjoying the story times? Good. Well, at least some one of one. Ah, look, she found one. Yes, there. Just look at it. Well, if you weren't enjoying, you could have left, indeed. Oh, just look at it. It's mesmerized by you as well. They grow so fast.
I couldn't hear you for a while, but I know you were saying things.
Yes, about how it's a majestic kitten and
Yeah,
how it grows so fast and does it look cute and all.
it's very cute and it looks so, um, yeah, like it's always has a bad plan that it's going to like, oh, that's interesting. How can I wreck it?
Phil is
Ooh,
rating
we're
us
being
with
raided.
78 people.
Ooh, thank
Oh,
you.
wow. Hi, Phil. Guess you beat
Hey.
us to it.
Yeah.
Oh, we were
I was
actually planning.
hoping
Yeah,
you we could raid you in a bit.
we were. I was actually hoping. Oh, maybe we can raid Phil for a bit. But oh, suddenly he just does it again. Well played.
Yeah.
Well played, Phil.
But welcome everybody. Good to see you.
Welcome. Welcome to another story time, and we've got Nike fork. Nice.
Welcome.
Just finished it. Yeah, we were having a wonderful stream because Reninci is doing story time again, and another
Very
visitor.
Monk. Thank you for following.
Yes, you really want me to wear the tail, don't you, Phil?
Well, it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
Only 20 more followers to
no,
go, and then
no,
Jay
don't.
will have to make a video of him wearing a tail. And I've heard the concept for that video, and I'm a fan, so I want
Oh,
that to happen.
oh, good. Yes, that works.
Yeah, that part.
Well, at least welcome,
Wait, wait.
people. At this particular point, we're doing a story time where our wonderful, enchanting Reninci is actually, well, reading a couple of stories in her calming, soothing voice with a lot of voice acting thrown in. So stay a while. Welcome. Stay a
And
while and listen. That was it.
we're currently doing regular art streams on Sundays, and then on Wednesdays we're trying new things so that
Yes.
else can have some time to rest. Yeah, I hope that your stream was good and that yeah, that you're still feeling a bit awake. I know you give it all during your stream.
I can just
Um,
imagine him face down on his tablet, like.
yeah, done. Oh, survived.
Yes. Here, have this raid.
Yeah. All right. So, what story do we want next? Do we want the next story, the crab that played with the sea, or do we want the cat that walked by himself? Quick votes, and then I'll
uh,
go read it.
do you need me to put up a vote or just wait? Just wait.
Um,
We'll see.
yeah, it only has to be a short vote.
Mm-hmm. Finish asks, do you already have a name for the kitties?
Nothing final yet,
Well,
but the one that I just showed you, I have not found a better name yet than Laura. Not Laura, but Lara Croft.
no, that sounds like a good name.
Yeah, she is definitely an adventurer.
And will probably be a handful. I think the
Okay,
crab's
everybody wants to
winning.
hear the crab. Okay, we're going to do the crab.
Oh, and the other one, says Furry.
Um, don't know yet. Don't know
Indie.
yet.
You're really rooting
No,
for Indie, right, Furry?
who knows?
Oh, well, it all
But
depends
nothing
on the
finally.
new owner, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm not going to take the credit to name that one.
Nope, because if you name the cat, it's yours. I found that
Okay.
out.
Yeah, somehow it has a way of happening that way.
Hmm.
So I don't name cats that I don't keep. I try to stay away from that. All right, the crab that played with the sea. Before the high and far off times, O my best beloved, came the time of the very beginnings, and that was in the days that the eldest magician was getting things ready. First, he got the earth ready, then, he got the sea ready, and then he told all the animals that they could come out and play. And all the animals said, "Oh, eldest magician, what shall we play at?" And he said, "I will show you." He took the elephant, all the elephant there was, and said, "Play at being an elephant." And all the elephant there was played. He took the beaver, all the beaver there was, and said, "Play at being a beaver." And then all the beaver there was played. He took the cow, all the cow there was, and said, "Play at being a cow." And all the cow there was played. He took the turtle, all the turtle there was, and said, "Play at being a turtle." And all the turtle there was played. One by one, he took all the beasts and birds and fishes and told them what to play at. But towards evening, when people and things grew restless and tired, there came up the man with his own little girl daughter. Yes, with his own best beloved little girl daughter sitting upon his shoulder. And he said, "What is this play, eldest magician?" And the eldest magician said, "Ho, son of Adam, this is the play of the very beginning. But you are too wise for this play." And the man saluted and said, "Yes, I am too wise for this play. But see that you make all the animals obedient to me." Now, while the two were talking together, Hawama the crab, who was next in game, scuttled off sideways and stepped into the sea, saying to himself, "I will play my play alone in the deep waters, and I will never be obedient to this son of Adam." Nobody saw him go away, except the little girl daughter, where she leaned on the man's shoulder, and the play went on till there were no more animals left without orders, and the eldest magician wiped the fine dust off his hands and walked about the world to see how the animals were playing. He went north, best beloved, and he found all the elephant there was digging with his tusks and stamping with his feet in the nice new clean earth that had been made ready for him. "Kun," said all the elephant there was, meaning, "Is this right?" "Paya kun," said the eldest magician, meaning, "That is quite right." And he breathed upon the great rocks and lumps of the earth that all the elephant there was had thrown up, and they became the great Himalayan mountains. And you can look them out on the map. He went east, and he found all the cow there was feeding in the field that had been made ready for her. And she licked her tongue round a whole forest at a time and swallowed it and sat down to chew her cud. "Kun," said all the cow there was. "Paya kun," said the eldest magician, and he breathed upon a bare patch where she had eaten, and upon the place where she had sat down, and one became the great Indian desert, and the other became the desert of Sahara, and you can look them out on the map. He went west, and he found all the beaver there was, making a beaver dam across the mouth of broad rivers that had been got ready for him. "Kun," said all the beaver there was. "Paya kun," said the eldest magician, and he breathed upon the fallen trees and the still water, and they became the Everglades in Florida, and you may look them out on the map. Then he went south and found all the turtle there was, scratching with his flippers in the sand that had been got ready for him. And the sand and the rocks whirled through the air and fell far off into the sea. "Gone?" said all the turtle there was. "Payakon," said the eldest magician, and he breathed upon the sand and the rocks where they had fallen in the sea, and they became the most beautiful islands of Borneo, Celebes, Sumatra, Java, and all the rest of the Malay archipelago, and you can look them out on the map. By and by, the eldest magician met the man on the banks of the Perak River, and said, "Ho, son of Adam, are all the animals obedient to you?" "Yes," said the man. "Is all the earth obedient to you?" "Yes," said the man. "Is all the sea obedient to you?" "No," said the man. "Once a day and once a night the sea runs up the Perak River and drives the sweet water back into the forest, so that my house is made wet. Once a day and once a night it runs down the river and draws all the water after it, so that there is nothing left but mud, and my canoe is upset. Is that the play you told it to play?" "No," said the eldest magician. That is a new day and a bad play. It's a new and a bad play. Look, said the man. And as he spoke, the great sea came up to the mouth of the Perak River, driving the river backwards till it overflowed all the dark forests for miles and miles, and flooded the man's house. This is wrong. Launch your canoe, and we will find out who is playing with the sea, said the eldest magician. They stepped into the canoe. The little girl daughter came with them, and the man took his kris, a curving, wavy dagger with a blade like a flame, and they pushed out on the Perak River. Then the sea began to run back and back, and the canoe was sucked out of the mouth of the Perak River, past Selangor, past Malacca, past Singapore, out and out to the island of Bintang, as though it had been pulled by a string. Then the eldest magician stood up and shouted, Ho! Beasts, birds, and fishes, that I took between my hands at the very beginning and taught the play that you should play. Which one of you is playing with the sea? Then the moon rose big and full over the water, and the eldest magician said to the hunchbacked old man who sits in the moon, spinning a fishing line with which he hopes one day to catch the world, Ho, fisher of the moon, are you playing with the sea?
No, said the fisherman, I am spinning a line with which I shall someday catch the world. But I do not play with the sea.
And he went on spinning his line. Now there is also a rat up in the moon, who always bites the old fisherman's line as fast as it is made, and the eldest magician said to him, Ho, rat of the moon, are you playing with the sea? And the rat said,
I'm too busy biting through the line that this old fisherman is spinning. I do not play with the sea.
and he went on biting the line. Then the little girl daughter put up her little soft brown arms with the beautiful white shell bracelets and said,
Oh, eldest magician, when my father here talked to you at the very beginning, and I leaned upon his shoulder, while the beasts were being taught their plays, one beast went away naughtily into the sea before you had taught him his play.
and then the eldest magician said, How wise are little children who see and are silent. What was the beast like? And the little girl daughter said,
He was round and he was flat, and his eyes grew upon stalks, and he walked sideways like this, and he was covered with a strong armor upon his back.
and the eldest magician said, How wise are little children who speak truth. Now I know where Pawama went. Give me the paddle. So he took the paddle, but there was no need to paddle, for the water flowed steadily past all the islands till they came to the place called Pusat Tasek, the heart of the sea, where the great hollow is that leads down to the heart of the world, and in that hollow grows the wonderful tree, Pa Yangi, that bears the magic twin nuts. Then the eldest magician slid his uh, arms up to the shoulder through the deep warm water, and under the roots of the wonderful tree he touched the broad back of Pawama the crab, and Pawama settled down at the touch. and all the sea rose up as water rises in a basin when you put your hand into it. Ah, said the eldest magician, now I know who has been playing with the sea. And he called out, what are you doing, Pauama? And Pauama, deep down below, answered, once a day and once a night, I go out to look for my food. Once a day and once a night, I return. Leave me alone. Then the eldest magician said, listen, Pauama, when you go out from the cave, the waters of the sea pour down into Pusat Talek, and all the beaches of all the islands are left bare, and the little fish die, and Raja Moyang Kabang, the king of the elephants, his legs are made muddy. When you come back and sit in Pusak Tasek, the waters of the sea rise, and half the little islands are drowned, and the man's house is flooded, and Raja Abdullah, the king of the crocodiles, his mouth is filled with the salt water. Then Pauama, deep down below, laughed and said, I did not know I was so important. Henceforward, I will go out 7 times a day, and the waters will never be still. And the eldest magician said, I cannot make you play the play you were meant to play, Pauama, because you escaped me at the very beginning. But if you are not afraid, come up and we will talk about it. I am not afraid, said Pauama, and he rose to the top of the sea in his moonlight. There was nobody in the world so big as Pauama, for he was the king crab of all crabs. Not a common crab, but a king crab. One side of his great shell touched the beach at Sarawak, the other touched the beach at Pahang, and he was taller than the smoke of 3 volcanoes. As he rose up through the branches of the wonderful tree, he tore off one of the great twin fruits, the magic double-kerneled nuts that make people young, and the little girl daughter saw it bubbling alongside the canoe, and pulled it in and began to pick out the soft eyes of it with her little golden scissors. Now, said the magician, make a magic, Pawama, to show that you are really important. Pawama rolled his eyes and waved his legs, but he could only stir up the sea because, though he was a king crab, he was nothing more than a crab, and the eldest magician laughed. You are not so important after all, Pawama, he said. Now, let me try. And he made a magic with his left hand, with just the little finger of his left hand. And lo and behold, best beloved, Pawama's hard, blue-green-black shell fell off him as a husk falls off a cocoa nut, and Pawama was left all soft, soft as the little crabs that you sometimes find on the beach, best beloved. Indeed, you are very important, said the eldest magician. Shall I ask the man here to cut you with Chris? Shall I send for Raja Mojang Kabang, the king of the elephants, to pierce you with his tusks? Or shall I call Raja Abdullah, the king of the crocodiles, to bite you? And Pawama said, I am ashamed. Give me back my hard shell, and let me go back to Tasek, and I will only stir out once a day and once a night to get my food. And the eldest magician said, No, Pawama, I will not give you back your shell, for you will grow bigger and prouder and stronger, and perhaps you will forget your promise, and you will play with the sea once more. Then Pawama said, What shall I do? I am so big I can only hide in Pusattasek, and if I go anywhere else, all soft as I am now, the sharks and the dogfish will eat me. And if I go to Pusattasek, all soft as I am now, though I may be safe, I can never stir out to get my food, and so I shall die. Then he waved his legs and lamented. Listen, said Pawama. Listen, Pawama, said the eldest magician. I cannot make you play the play you were meant to play, because you escaped me at the very beginning. But if you choose, I can make every stone and every hole and every bunch of weed in all the seas a safe pusata sack for you and for your children for always. Then Pawama said, That is good, but I do not choose yet. Look, there is that man who talked to you at the very beginning. If he had not taken up your attention, I should not have grown tired of waiting and run away, and all this would never have happened. What will he do for me? And the man said, If you choose, I will make a magic, so that both the deep water and the dry ground will be a home for you and your children, so that you shall be able to hide both on the land and in the sea. And Pawama said, I do not choose yet. Look, there is that girl who saw me running away at the very beginning. If she had spoken then, the eldest magician would have called me back, and all this would never have happened. What will she do for me? And the little girl daughter said, This is a good nut that I am eating. If you choose, I will make a magic, and I will give you this pair of scissors, very sharp and strong, so that you and your children can eat coconuts like this all day long when you come up from the sea to the land. Or you can dig a pusata sack for yourself with the scissors that belong to you when there is no stone or hole nearby. And when the earth is too hard, by the help of these same scissors, you can run up a tree. And Pawama said, I do not choose yet, for all soft as I am, these gifts would not help me. Give me back my shell, O eldest magician, then I will play your play. And the eldest magician said, I will give it back, Pawama, for 11 months of the year. But on the 12th month of every year it shall grow soft again, to remind you and all your children that I can make magics, and to keep you humble, Pawama. For I see that if you can run both under the water and on land, you will grow too bold. And if you can climb trees and crack nuts and dig holes with your scissors, you will grow too greedy, Pawama. Then Pawama thought a little and said, I have made my choice. I will take all the gifts. Then the eldest magician made a magic with the right hand, with all 5 fingers in his right hand, And lo and behold, best beloved, Pauama grew smaller and smaller and smaller, till at last there was only a little green crab swimming in the water alongside the canoe, crying in a very small voice. And the girl daughter picked him up on the palm of her little brown hand and set him in the bottom of the canoe and gave him her scissors. And he waved at them in his little arms and opened them and shut them and snapped them and said,
I can eat nuts. I can crack shells. I can dig holes. I can climb trees. I can breathe in the dry air. And I can find a safe pusat under every stone. I did not know I was so important. Kun,
meaning, is this right? Paya Kun, said the eldest magician, and he laughed and gave him his blessing. And little Pauama scuttled over the side of the canoe into the water, and he was so tiny that he could have hidden under the shadow of a dry leaf on land or of a dead shell at the bottom of the sea. Was that well done? Said the eldest magician. Yes, said the man. But now we must go back to Perak, and that is a weary way to paddle. If we had waited till Pauama had gone out of Pusatasek and come home, the water would have carried us there by itself. You are lazy, said the eldest magician. So your children shall be lazy. They shall be the laziest people in the world. They shall be called the Malazi, and held up his finger to the moon and said, "O fisherman, here is the man too lazy to row home. Pull his canoe home with your line, fisherman."
no, said the man. If I am to be lazy all my days, let the sea work for me twice a day forever. That will save paddling.
And the eldest magician laughed and said, "Paya Kun." That is right. And the rat of the moon stopped biting the line, and the fisherman let his line down till it touched the sea, and he pulled the whole deep sea along, past the island of Bintang, past Singapore, past Malacca, past Selangor, till the canoe whirled into the mouth of the Perak River again.
Kun,
Said the fisherman of the moon. "Paya Kun," said the eldest magician. "See now that you pull the sea twice a day and twice a night forever, so that the Malaysy fisherman may be safe paddling. But be careful not to do it too hard, or I shall make a magic on you as I did to Pawama." Then they all went up the Perak River and went to bed, best beloved. Now listen and attend. From that day to this, the moon has always pulled the sea up and down and made what we call the tides. Sometimes the fisher of the sea pulls a little too hard, and then we get spring tides. And sometimes he pulls a little too softly, and then we get what are called neap tides. But nearly always he is careful because of the eldest magician. And Pawama, you can see when you go to the beach how all Pawama's babies make little pusataseks for themselves under every stone and bunch of weed on the sands. You can see them waving their little scissors, and in some parts of the world they truly live on the dry land and run up the palm trees and eat coconuts exactly as the girl daughter promised. But once a year all Pawamas must shake off their hard armor and be soft to remind them of what the eldest magician could do, And so it isn't fair to kill or hunt Pawama's babies just because old Pawama was stupidly rude a very long time ago. Oh, yes, and Pawama's babies hate being taken out of their little pusata sacks and brought home in pickle bottles. That is why they nip you with their scissors, and it serves you right. Let's see. China going P's and O's past Pawama's playground close, and this pusata sex lies near the track of most BIs. UYK and NDIL know Pawama's home as well as the Fisher of the Sea knows Ben's MMs and Rutibatos, but this is a rather queer. ATLs cannot come here. O and DOA must go round another way. Orient Anchor Bibby Hall never go that way at all. UCS would have a fit if it found itself on it. And if beavers took their cargoes to Penang instead of Lagos, or a fat Shah Seville bore passengers to Singapore, or a White Star were to try a little trip to Surabaya, or a BSA went on past Natal to Cheribon, then great Mr. Lloyd would come with a wire and drag them home. You'll know what my riddle means when you've eaten mangosteens. Or if you can't wait till then, ask them to let you have the outside page of the Times. Turn it over to page 2, where it is marked shipping on the top left hand. Then shake the atlas and what is the finest picture book in the world, and see how the names of the places that the steamers go to fit into the names of the places on the map. Any steamer kiddie ought to be able to do that, but if you can't read, ask someone to show it to you. Alright, we have to make another drawing then.
Wow. Was a bit of a different story, but there was a connection as well with
Yeah.
the alphabet and the other ones. So applause. Well done, Lindsay. Thank you.
I hope everyone enjoyed this one too. Oh, I
Well,
see. Look at the time.
yes, people enjoyed the extra time. We were talking about several things. Also, Mark won for food for the story.
Food for the story?
Yes, you know the thing where we talk about food in this on this channel.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, well, the story mentioned food a lot, so Mark won down.
Ah, yes. Oh.
And we were also talking about the profile picture video. I mentioned that I was going to try to record it next or oncoming weekend, and maybe the weekend after that, and after that I still need to edit. But I told the good people in the chat, and I made a little bit of an error, so we, the stream, told the people in the chat that actually we are trying to do our best to make something good and not rush it. Gives a bit a higher chance for something decent-ish.
Yes, yes.
Let's see. Of course, a couple of jokes from Girius and Furry.
Those are always good.
Yes, and something about not having any active memories of things.
Oh yeah, that's the best thing that happened for most people in years.
Oh, and of course, addressing certain people at work as Malazy.
Mm.
Because that won't hurt us much.
Yeah, I thought I was a bit of a bit one on the edge of like, oh, can I say this? I think I can, but it's not a compliment.
And of course, Pharaohs wouldn't be Pharaohs if he didn't remind me of my promises. To make up for not posting the video yet, I'm going to keep the profile picture up for a couple of months.
Yeah, good one. Yes. All right. But do specify.
2. Couple,
A couple, but 2.
at least.
All right.
So, seeing as we've reached the end of our stream, and I think they got about 20 minutes longer, so hey, didn't want to mention it because you were doing such a good job, and I was like, no, not gonna disturb.
I would have hated to stop midway, but
Yeah, we're not doing that. Yeah, I had
we're
some
not
other
that
bad
cheap.
words. Yeah, we're not doing
All
that.
right.
So it was fun. I've already selected a channel to raid, so I'm going to press some buttons. I hope the raid will go well. It's called Cat. Someone
Jellycat. Oh, that's a good name.
Cat, yeah. She is a rather bubbly, happy artist who draws a lot of good things and some cute things as well. And the stream feels really nice. So yeah,
Awesome.
we're going to
I'm
rate
very
that.
curious.
So everyone, make sure your raid calls are ready. Um, as for the other stuff, Sunday will be a regular stream again. We will be on the usual time with the usual way of coffee and foxes. Good art, talking, lots of talking. Oh, wait, the
Yes,
doodling is
3
already.
talking heads for
Yeah,
the price of 1.
yes. And, well, everyone seems to be happy with the stream again. And Furry will be in his vacation, or will he be on vacation as well? We don't know
Have a
that
good
yet.
one, Furry. Enjoy.
Yes. So,
Well, thank you everybody for being here, and we will see you Sunday.
yes, see you Sunday.
And
Raid
now,
will
let's
commence in
raid!
3, 2, 1. Raiding!